You guys are very lucky to be here because you're in for a treat. Bethany Nelson. So I was telling Matt earlier, we go way back. I think I've known you for now 16 years.
No.
Not quite?
No.
Well, so there was a kind of a fuzzy time in my life where I used to hang out with Bethany and Olivia Manson. We may or may not have had a Bachelor Fantasy League from The Bachelor.
Nice. The TV show.
Kind of a knockout pool, you know, where you pick your horses and.
But you have to specify that Perry would only play the years that it was the male Bachelor, because then there was 30 women. Where when the years it was the female Bachelorette and 30 men, you would not participate.
It just wasn't as fun. So Bethany is one of the best people you'll ever meet. How I promoted you in one of our meetings recently was you have a vulnerability about you, and I can't even say that word, that I bet each of you are going to be touched in a different way through this conversation. So as far as where we rank last year, do we know our numbers? Do you want me to just tell you? Or?
I don't know where I rank in the region, no.
Okay, so in the region in 2021, ranking is not important, but we did 25,678,000 in GCI, 68 units, 68 and a half units.
Yes.
It's pretty dang good.
Thank you.
So here's what we know. We know you could have been anywhere in the world right now and you chose to be here with us. And I say this every time, we take that very seriously. And I want you to walk out of here with at least one thing you can implement by the end of tomorrow, because I know most of you are going to watch basketball at the end of today. So, so take great notes, and let's just give her a round of applause. Yeah. So just give us kind of your background and how you ended up here. I shared with them a little bit about your background as well, and we'll dive in. We may or may not actually ask some of these questions because we have a ton to talk about, but yeah, so tell us about you.
So I'll tell you, because one of your questions that you sent me was like my KW story. So I'll give you kind of my short and dirty, like entire life story, because it all adds together. So I was born in the inner city of St. Paul, where my parents helped start a church. And when I was 10, they moved our family to the country of Kazakhstan to be missionaries. We were there for 2 years before we were deported, and the U.S. Embassy was involved, and it was very dramatic and very scary. In that 2-year period, though, where we were there, I was the only blonde person besides my brothers, and there was extreme poverty all around us. We lived in a very poor city right on the Caspian Sea, and we were deported because my parents were helping plant a church in a Muslim country. They actually arrested my dad and the other American men that we were there with and stamped their passports on national television saying no Muslim country should let them in. So we were then back in Minnesota when I was 12, and I wasn't confused enough being a 12-year-old girl that was deported. So my parents decided to send me to private school in Edina. So went from extreme poverty, and then I was the poor kid. So I was the rich kid, and then I was the poor kid. And I'd get dropped off at Calvin Christian School over here in Edina, and my dad's like beat up. We called the car Beavis. I don't even remember what kind of like station wagon it was. And yeah, there it was like the opposite, where I saw money in a very different way, and that really plays into like some of what I'll share today about money. Finished high school and then moved actually to Texas to follow a boy, where I became a nanny while I was going to community college, and the mom of the nanny had just joined Keller Williams. And I was going to community college, nannying her kids, and she goes, "Hey, in your spare time, why don't you help me market my real estate business?" She had just left a huge builder. This, mind you, was in 2008. And she's like, "Why don't you help me market and build social media?" So that was my first exposure. I was in KW classes in 2008 in Plano, Texas. And then moved to Nashville to finish my degree. I wanted to go into music business. and decided music business was not for me, finished with public relations, moved back here in 2010. So I finished college fast because I was a homeschool geek in high school and did college in high school. So moved back here in 2010. So that's why we don't know each other 16
I was
years.
just gonna say, yeah. North Dakota man.
Yeah. But needed a job, and I had a public relations degree, applied everywhere, and of course no one was hiring a fresh college graduate, and was slinging jeans at American Eagle Outfitters, and also saw a job posting for the Keller Williams office in Maple Grove, needing someone to work their front desk. And I was like, well, I know what Keller Williams is, why not? So I applied. Olivia Manson, who many of you in here know, did my interview and said, I can't hire you because your disc profile is wrong. And I was like, well, why? And she goes, you're a high D. My disc showed DC. She goes, you will hate this job. And I go, but I know the job and I won't hate it. And if I do hate it, I'll just become a realtor. So what do you have to lose? So she'll tell you, if you ask her, that I lied on my disc, which actually I did, but I think it was very clever because in college you're taught to cater your resume to the job you're applying for. So why wouldn't I cater my personality test to the job I'm applying for? But apparently I still showed up like a D. That role did not last long for me because I didn't love it, and I transitioned into being a realtor in 2011. So that's kind of my story on how very weirdly I got to KW straight out of college. And ever since then, it's been a very interesting journey. I started on a team, left the team, kind of tried to do it on my own, then tried to build a team, which failed massively. Became a team leader of a market center, the Keller Williams Eden Prairie Market Center. Was in that role for 2.5 years. And in 2019, went back into sales. And so 2019, I call my recovery year. You know, a team leader, they need a recovery year.
I'm still in that.
Yeah. I often think I am too. But what was interesting is in 2019, I was really focused on myself and still somehow ranked as number 5 in our region for individual team. And then in 2020, as we know, COVID surprised us all. And I really struggled. I think everybody did during COVID, but for me, it was more of I wasn't inspired. I had no clarity on what I wanted to be doing. I had wrapped 2.5 years of my identity in a role that I will be really transparent. Like at the end, I was let go. It was not something where I raised my hand and said I was done. And I've never been fired in my life. And so to be let go, the same day I said goodbye to my friend that was dying from cancer, which they didn't know that. So it was just a rough day for me, is what I'm trying to say. I didn't know who I was in 2020, and my maths coach and I had a really powerful conversation where she said, the issue is you're no longer inspired because you are meant to build things and you're not building anything right now. So when are you going to decide to build again? And so that was kind of the start of me thinking about building, very spiritual, still praying about building. What does that look like? That year I had a college intern, marketing intern. Her name's Kylie. She's still with me today. Kylie was going to Iowa State while interning with me, and unfortunately graduated in spring of 2020. So what a bummer, like no graduation celebration or anything. She got her license in August, and she was really my first full-time team member once I decided to build again. Did it wrong, right? Because she went into sales and we had no admin. So last year was a very messy year, but I'll try to give you the short version. So Kylie and I started out, we hired Jess, who's here, she's our executive assistant in January. Then we hired Heather Eddington, who's our marketing assistant, in September. And in December, actually in October, I got a tap on the shoulder from someone that said, I want to join your team, that was on a different team. So that was a little bit of a process navigating that. And so we had 2 team members officially join us from that team in December. So last year was like our building year. And so it's still very messy. We talk about it all the time, like what's the focus of today? Because there's so many different loops we haven't circled up. But yeah, so now we're 4 agents and 2 full-time admin and 1 part-time runner who works with us 6 hours a week, hangs sold signs, lock boxes, all that stuff. So that's my KW story.
Any questions on that? Okay. All right. So there's a million different things we could talk about, and I want to touch on all of them. So let's talk just first off, if you follow Bethany on social media, she does a very good job of one, showing your personality through your posts, also sharing some of your struggles and challenges, as well as building your business. So I guess the question would be, how do you build your business now? If you want to talk on social media, for sure, but what do some of your systems look like, and how does social media play in for you?
Yeah. So when we look at our numbers from last year, our top 4 sources of business, and I'm not going to put these in the correct order, but you'll get the gist. It was past client referral, repeat past client, Sphere referral, and then just Sphere. Those were our top 4. And I'm pretty sure the order was both Sphere, no, past client, well, whatever, doesn't matter. Anyway, then it was agent referrals, and then there was one open house. So clearly open houses were not a focus last year. And so in going into this year, a big motto of mine right now is, how do we just double down on everything that we're doing that's working and eliminate everything else? And so we have just really tried to double down on those 4 groups, our past clients and our Sphere. So we have a 36 touch system. I know that was one of the things that you had asked me to share on. I've been doing the 36 touch since I joined KW. It was one of those things where it made sense to me. I liked the math. Our conversion ratio is 18% on however many people are in our database. And that is very specific to how we've set up our different marketing campaigns. So we call them Databank A, Databank B, Databank C. Our Databank A is anyone that we receive business from, or a past client, or someone we believe would send us business or do business with us in the future. We have to have their mailing address, email address, and phone number, or they cannot be labeled Databank A because they can't receive our 36 touch. So they don't get counted. So even if it's, someone that you know really well, they can't be in Databank A. Then from Databank B, those are people that we have met, but we're still missing information from. So we're constantly trying to get that information and load more people into Databank A. And then Databank C are people that we have not met. So they find us on the internet, or they come to one of our virtual homebuyer seminars. And so that's how we build that out. And our goal for the end of this year is to have our Databank A list to 100 households. So we track by household, not by individual person. So that will probably end up being closer to like 1,400 people. And then the math is, 18% conversion on that if we can keep our conversion ratio to where we want. So that's why if I work it all the way backwards on, okay, this is where the business is coming from. A lot of people track, closings, pendings, appointment. I track the household because for me, that's telling me what our business will do in 2022. Because I feel like because our business is so database driven, what's going to happen this year is actually probably already pretty set. Any additional business we want to bring in has to come from other lead levers, which is another area of focus for us right now.
So if I'm an A, what do the touches look like?
Yeah, so I brought some stuff. So when I transitioned into being a team leader, I actually had a little team. It was an assistant who was mostly virtual, and then my brother was an agent, and then we had a second agent. And so I really tried to keep my team while I was team leader. It fell apart while I was team leader, and that's okay. But in transitioning to being a team leader, I thought I can't be super hands-on with my team. So how do I keep them accountable to the 36 touch? Because I knew that was my bread and butter. And so I came up with this concept of creating a calendar. And what I've realized is a lot of agents, in coaching with them as I was a team leader, or just in hearing or looking inward, we say we're accountable, but we're really not accountable to ourselves. I would argue we're not even accountable to our coaches usually, and definitely not accountable to our families because they get ignored the most when business is good. But I feel like who agents are accountable to is their clients. And so if I tell my client I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. So we pre-planned all of our events and all of our touches in our calendar. And then that got sent to our clients. So they knew when they were supposed to hear from us. And that kept us accountable to the 36 touch. So this is now, that started in 2018. So this is now, our, I don't even know, 5th version of the calendar. And that's one thing that we do. What we also do is, so with our 36 touch, it's all based on 4 events. So we have 4 events a year, and then our touches around that are based on the 4 in-person events. And this is something Heather just created. So I mentioned that our other top leading lead source is agent referrals. And with how many people are like gluten-free these days and all sorts of things, like sending someone brownies as a thank you for sending you a referral, I just was like, I just don't feel like that's helpful. So instead, I had Heather put our entire 36 touch marketing campaign into this packet with a letter from me explaining at the beginning what it is and our conversion ratio. And now when someone sends us a referral, we send them our 36 touch marketing campaign, our calendar, and like a candle from a local business as a thank you. And so I can pass these things around just so you can see them. But that's what we do for our 36 touch. So we do 12 mailers, so everybody gets a mailer a month. We do 12 emails, everyone gets an email a month, and then the 4 events, 2 phone calls a year. And I don't know what else I'm missing, but.
So what are the actual mailers?
They vary depending on what's coming up next. So if we have an event coming up, so 4 of the mailers will be invites. We have a spring clean postcard that just went out. So like the things we recommend you do to like get your house ready for spring. 2 sports magnets. Yeah. And then we do a couple different like big, you asked me, what did you ask me? Social media. So we do a couple big like social media campaigns. So during COVID, like I said, I was kind of just like trying to find myself, which I think a lot of us were. And I was like, what are the things that are most important to me? And I realized or got some clarity around the things that matter to me most, or that I want people to remember my business by, is that we're a local business. Like, I know that sounds simple, but people really wanted to support other local businesses, especially during COVID. And then how can we support other local small businesses? I wanted them to know that I am not a realtor, I'm a real estate wealth advisor. And so that's now kind of what I say. That's how I treat our clients, the conversations we have, whether they're buying or selling, or if they attend one of our seminars. And that's what all our social media is kind of built around, is like authentic communication around we're a small business. I'm a real human that has real challenges. And then we're a real estate wealth advising company, which means that I put my money where my mouth is. And I also invest in real estate and talk about money a lot on social media.
Sweet. So let's go down that road. So we have 4 doors now. You want to talk about investing at all?
Yeah. So with investing, I've used the house hacking philosophy at first. So my first purchase was a duplex in Hopkins. I owner occupied it, used an FHA 3.5% down loan, purchased it in September of 2018 for $360,000. Is now worth over $500,000, and it cash flows $915 a month. I lived in it for a little over 2 years, and then I moved home with my parents, which a lot of people are like, what are you doing at 30 something years old? And I was like, I have a bigger vision, which I knew I wanted the next duplex. And as humbling as some people thought that looked, like I really didn't care. And I spent 6 months with them just waiting to be able to jump with my duplex cash flowing and my other one cash flowing. And another one got brought to me. So all 3 of my properties have been brought to me off market. So that's something else where, again, when you start saying this is important to you and you communicate that to people, people call you. And purchased my second property in March of last year in Plymouth. That's another side-by-side duplex. And I live there for $1,200 a month. And then I just closed last Friday on what I call a shithole. It is a single-family home in St. Louis Park. It's a 4-bed, 2-bath, and I'm going to completely refigure the floor plan, but it will remain a 4-bed, 2-bath. And I should have over $100,000 worth of equity in it when I'm done. And that should also cash flow around $900 a month.
Sweet. How much are you spending
on the construction? The total, including the sales price, is $320. The ARV came in at $436.
Did you finance some of those construction costs?
I used a construction loan. On all 3 of my purchases, I have put less than $4,000 out of pocket into every single one of them. I've watched a lot of people say like, well, I can't invest in real estate because of blank. And I think the reality is like, it's kind of just an excuse. I love the quote Ben Kinney says where it's, we overcomplicate things to justify our inaction. And so I've really tried to make everything super simple. And I have a longer term vision. Like I'm 33 years old and I know that when I'm 63 years old, all 3 properties will be paid off. They'll be worth, over 1.5 million just between these 3, and they'll be cash flowing cows. So like, why wouldn't I move home for 6 months? Why, like, there's just stuff where I'm like, I just have a longer vision in mind that those short-term like challenges don't really feel like that big of a deal. All of them I factored in my closing costs, so none of them I paid closing costs out of pocket. I use my commission towards my down payment, even so much so that I've increased my commission. You can do that. Even if you're using a traditional loan, you can say, I want to pay myself 3%, not 2.7. I will give you a higher sales price, but I want 3% on my payout. And the seller doesn't care as long as their net is what they want it to be. So you just get creative. And that's how that's worked for all 3 of them.
You guys write the quote down. We overcomplicate things to justify our inaction. All right, what are the questions we have as we go? Mr. Brady.
You mentioned, Bethany, that someone tapped you on the shoulder. They wanted to be a part of your team, and I think somebody else came along. Tell us about that. Why does this person who's on a team, you said, I'm pretty sure I know who this person is, and why'd they want to be with you?
It's a great question. I asked myself the same question. Actually, it was interesting. She was trying to sit me down for a while. And I know her well enough because I was the team leader of the market center when she joined us originally as a new agent, that I know that she loves to collect information and then wants to brainstorm with you. And I was like, I do not have capacity to brainstorm with anyone about anything right now. Like, and so I kept sloughing her off to the one point she just walked into my office. Like, she's like, I need to meet with you. And I was like, okay. So we scheduled a meeting and I actually thought she was going to share some really hard personal things with me and just like needed a sounding board. And instead she goes, no, I want to join your team. And I was like, I wasn't prepared for that. We need to talk to some other people about it first. And so we followed the appropriate channels. She had already had a conversation with her previous team leader. I had a conversation with her team leader. And at the end of the day, the things that she shared was we have systems and we have leverage, and she felt like she wasn't getting those systems and leverage that she needed. She really saw in me the kind of business that she also wanted to build. So very community-based, database driven. And yeah, those are the biggest things that she shared on why she was interested in creating a partnership. So we dated for a while. It does help though. I've also heard this from other people, like actually Gary says this, he goes, the best way to hire someone is to live with them. And essentially I'd lived with her for 3 years because we'd been in the same market center. I knew without even going into certain questions, I kind of knew what the answer was going to be. I knew what her challenges were. I knew what was holding her back. And I truly believed we could help her. Where if someone wanted to join me and be like, I want to be the best ISA, I'd be like, I am not your girl. Like, I don't cold call. I don't use a dialer. Like, that's not, I can't help you. So knowing that our visions were in alignment, that was a comfortable move for me. And yes, she had a showing partner that came on. We did sit down, and what was interesting is we sat down and I just said, you can't be a showing partner on my team. And very quickly said, you'll have to become an agent or you won't make the money you want to make. I don't know how the math got wrong before, but she was going to have to help show way too many houses that weren't actually realistic to make her income goal. And so we had to cast a new vision for her, which was, I think, difficult for her originally, but now I have to have the reverse conversation where I'm like, you're holding yourself accountable to what these other agents are doing, and this is your third transaction. Like, so it's exciting to watch her like flourish and get really passionate about being an agent now.
Good question. Who else?
I have a question about events.
Yeah.
So when you started, was that kind of like an easy decision for you? Like, we're gonna have an event, or was it kind of like this fear of, it's our first event, like we don't know if anyone's gonna show up, and kind of how that's become a part of your process?
So when I first became my own team, I was already doing a lot of events. So actually, how I would say I got put on a radar with Keller Williams is when I was at the front desk. I started there in October, and the following January, our Maple Grove location had moved into our new building, and we were doing a grand reopening. And I was tasked with that grand reopening. And we had over 600 bodies through the door, and it cost our market center $2,000. And my OP sat me down and said, how did you do that? And so by sharing with him like social media and event planning and sponsorships, his team is the one I joined. So then when I went on my own, I was already in the event mode because it's just how I've done many other things through a degree in public relations. So I actually I don't remember what my first event was on my own. I will tell you, even now, when we launch new things, you don't get the most traction your first year. Like it takes years. But now, like, our people would probably call me if we didn't host our Portraits in the Park event in the fall. Like, people know that. We've done it for the last 4 years. We have over 150 people show up. It's just like we've become known for that in COVID. So I watched all these small businesses that I cared about suffering. And so I was like, how can I help them in like a tangible way and just an encouraging way? So we created, we being Kylie and I created our 12 days of Christmas giveaways. So for the first 12 days of December, we purchased an item from a local business and we gave it away. And that was really important to me to communicate to everyone that we purchased the item. Because even my friend Vanessa owns the Italian Eatery, if you've been there in South Minneapolis. And when she started reading my message, she thought I was asking her for something free, right? Because how many times do people go to small businesses and go, I will promote your small business on social media, but I want something free from you to give away. And instead it was, no, I just want to promote your small business. And I also want to actually financially support you by purchasing something and then just giving it away to our audience. And then we've done that now again this year, and people get really excited, and it helps grow our social media platforms, because to win those items, you have to tag us, share our stuff. And people love free crap. And I don't think any of it's crap, by the way, but people love free stuff. And it's another way. We'll keep doing that just because it's fun. It grows our social media presence, and then we get to support small businesses. So I would say it doesn't have to be even an in-person event. You know, we do a March Madness thing, and all of the money, so people do have to pay to play, and the $10 goes to a nonprofit. So we do 3 large cash donations, or prizes. I don't know the legal term I'm supposed to use. Jess used to work for the Minnesota Wild Foundation. She's like, you can't use these terms unless you've signed up for blah, blah, blah. So I'm totally saying it wrong. But anyway, first place is $500 cash, second place $250, third place $100. But it drives engagement, and I'd rather give the money to like people we care about. And then all the money that we raise, we donate. This year, we're donating it to every meal.
Your Google form was probably a great contact info tracker. That was sweet. I saw that. I remember the Maple Grove grand opening. That was sweet. Were
It
you?
was there too.
Do you remember the Edina grand opening?
No.
Because she
I
planned it.
became
I
the
don't
Keller
remember
Williams region.
I remember Maple Grove.
I also did Wyzetta's. Yeah, I
Wow.
became this part-time event planner for the region until I finally said, I'm done. Thank you so much. I love you. I'm going to sell real estate. So yeah, I planned 3 grand openings.
So what are the events? Portraits in the Park.
Yep.
What are the others?
What are the others?
Jess, what are the others?
It's right there.
In
What's our spring
person,
one?
we have kids here. First in the park, we have our pizza pop by,
Yeah.
which is Valentine's Day.
Hey, movie event. So
Movie
we rent out a
events.
movie theater.
Yep.
Photos with Santa.
Sweet.
And then we have our 3 virtual ones. Our Yeti cooler giveaway, March Madness.
12 days of Christmas.
Nice. I love that giveaway ideas.
We get much lighter on the events in the summer. We know Minnesotans, and they're not gonna, they go up north. Like they don't, so we don't do stuff in the summer really.
So let's talk about the market of the moment. Any tips, tricks, anything you want to share that's working for y'all?
Persistence. I think on the buy side, what I will say is, so I mentioned the whole real estate wealth advisor. We spend a lot of time with our clients up front. When I'm in a buyer consultation, which I'm doing less and less with them, the goal is for me to only be doing listings and investors is the only business I want to be working by the end of this year. And when we do buyer consultations, one, we go through things in very clear detail and set very clear expectations. And then 2 is it's all based on their future goals. And so the biggest question I ask up front is, how long do you see yourself living in your next home? Let's talk about that. Because if they tell me that they're only going to live there a couple of years, it might not be the market for them to buy that home in. Like, I truly don't know. But most of them, it's, well, I would like to live there probably around 5 years. Okay, if you absolutely had to, could you live there 8? Well, yeah, okay. Or would you ever be interested in turning your first home into an investment property? If they say yes, that actually completely changes the conversation, because it might change what loan program they should be using. So that's something else. Obviously we have to be careful, but I believe as realtors, to be a wealth advisor, if that's your goal, you need to understand the lending side. You need to understand the programs. You need to understand the impact of what one program first, how that affects the second one. If people say, well, I want to buy my home first, and then I want to go buy a duplex as an investment property. Okay, tell me more about that. Like, why do you want to do it in that order? Oh, I don't know. I just thought that would just make the most sense. Okay, can I share with you that it actually makes a lot more sense to buy your duplex first, buy it as an owner occupant. You only have to live there a year, and then go buy the next thing as an owner occupant. On a duplex, conventional guidelines have changed significantly, where for a while you had to put 15% down on a conventional loan if you were buying a duplex. Now there's another program out where you can use 5% down, but it's just like stacking things up appropriately. So there's another quote that I love that my coach tells me, that overwhelm is a symptom of a lack of clarity. And so if I'm ever feeling overwhelmed, I'm like, what am I not clear on? And if I see a client overwhelmed, I'm like, what are they not clear on? Because if we can create a really clear plan at the beginning where they understand this market's hard, I do not paint a rosy picture for them. I actually, on the reverse, I pretty much like prepare them for battle, right? It's like, Here are the things that you need to expect, especially when over 60% of our business is first-time home buyers. Here's what you need to expect. I need you to be willing to move into your parents' basement to save as much money as you can so that I can get you the home that you want. I want you to call your financial advisor and find out if it makes sense for you to take a loan against your 401k so that you have the option of an appraisal gap guarantee, even though I don't think you're going to have to use it. But do you have that option that we could put it in the contract to get you the house? So those are kind of the questions we're asking, and then writing the purchase agreements appropriately. We had a really strong January. We actually had a killer December. We came into the year with 5 million under contract for the year. We did not stop working in December. And then February, I'll just be frank, was like really hard. It was brutal. But now I think we've kind of regrouped and like championed ourselves to now March is getting a lot better. We have more sellers now willing. People were waiting before, like I'm gonna wait to find the house. We got their marketing ready because we knew we'd have to list them the same day they found the house, right? But now more people are willing to, I'll sell it and I'll move somewhere. I'll move in with my parents. I'll do what I need to do to make my moving goals a reality. Do you two remember, we learned this in team leader boot camp, the 4 quadrants that you bring someone through to recruit them? So we've shifted that into helping our buyers and our sellers.
Draw it out or?
Yeah, if you and Matt can help me. Okay, so
Positive present.
yes. So you start with the positive present. And so an example of that would be, I know Mr. and Mrs. Seller that it's really comfortable for you to just wait until the right property comes on the market. I get that you don't want to sell your home and not know where you're going. Okay, then we go to negative present.
Negative present.
Thank you.
Oh, look at our markers
I
here.
know it's
Come
going
on.
out. And I spelled that wrong. Okay, anyway, so then the negative present would be, but I also know that you're really stressed out, that you don't know how much that you can offer on your next home because we don't know how much we've sold your home for. So then you bring them over to, yep, negative future. So an example of that would be, Perry, how long are you comfortable sharing a bathroom with your mother-in-law? Because you don't have a bed and bath in the basement for her to use,
1 weekend.
right? So Perry, because that's so important to you, why don't we, wait, sorry, I did it wrong. Thank you. I can't talk and write at the same time.
Typical team leader struggle.
So Perry, since I know that it's so important to you and you're worried about this fall, let's make sure to get your home sold now so that we can be really aggressive in writing the best offer, getting you a new home so your mother-in-law is in the basement this fall.
Sweet. There you go.
So we try to do that with both our buyers and our sellers.
Do you guys have questions around that?
I like about it, Bethany, great job, because so much right now in this market, I don't think the agents are realizing that they need to take the time to actually go through all these expectations and these real emotions. If you do that on the front end, that's going to make when they don't get their offer accepted okay, because now they see that, well, I'm just in this quadrant and it's okay, because naturally people want to get out of the quadrant as fast as possible. But sometimes in our market, we may be there for 2 or 3 offers.
And I actually think we did it wrong. I'm pretty sure negative future is the last one. No?
It goes just like that.
It goes
Oh,
like,
it's a square. That's right.
well,
Okay.
so, and here's what we avoid as agents, is we avoid letting the people sit in their discomfort of where they're at today.
I would say though, the most important one on here is the negative future. Like that's the one that you like press. And that's what then creates the motivation also. And I think the other piece about that, Matt, is when you've had that really clear conversation with them later down the road when they freak out, because let's be real, they're probably going to, like, they're going to get upset, they're going to get emotional. You could go, do you remember, Matt, when we sat down originally, we talked about this is hard. This is brutal. So thank you for trusting me, and we're going to get the next one, right? Or whatever that looks like. But it just reminds them you're in their corner, and you've already had this conversation. This isn't the first time they're hearing it.
All right, I got a whole list of questions. Do you have any favorites you want me to pick out, or?
No.
Okay. So, and we've known each other a long time. When you said you're 33, that means we were hanging out when you were like 22.
Yeah.
Okay, how has failure or apparent failure set you up for later success? Do you have any favorite failures you'd like to share?
Do you have any favorite failures? I'm just kidding. No, I think the failure I probably share the most now that you might be referring to when it comes to like social media. I shared a little bit about my background with money. There was a distinct time in college where I actually won this award in this trip with the Public Relations Student Society of America. And this Belmont University was going to pay for me to go to San Diego. And they had like the hotel room covered, the flight covered, the tickets to the conference, all this stuff. But I was so broke at that moment because I was waiting for my next like student loan distribution to come through that I literally knew I couldn't go because I wouldn't have money for meals. And I called my parents and I said, can I borrow $100? And my parents were so broke, they couldn't give me $100. And that was a moment in my life where I went, I'm never going to rely on anyone else for money again. And you would think I would have learned my lesson then, but I didn't. And I ended up calling Grandma and Grandpa. And I said, can you mail me a check? And would you be willing to lend me $100? And they did. So I was able to go on the trip. Fast forward to I get my real estate license. My parents were like, you're crazy that you're getting your license in 2011, straight out of college. And I only made $8,000 my first year in real estate. And I worked my tail off. And I was still working at American Eagle. I was still doing some stuff for the office because I needed to pay bills. So when I did start making money, I was still in this like poor mindset. And what I've realized is that I can stretch $1,000 really far, but I can go through 10,000 like that. And it's because I'm more comfortable being poor than I am having money. And so when I started making really good money and I started making more than my parents combined, because they would say that, they like would figure out how much I was making and they said it. I became very uncomfortable and almost like ashamed of the money, and I just got rid of it. I'd spend it, I'd give it away. Like I just was stupid with money. And I didn't pay my taxes for 4 years. So in 2016, my friend and mentor Todd Higgs sat me down, and because I was thinking, so my assistant had just quit. She was my first assistant because she knew that I was not doing well financially at that moment. And I had hired leverage for luxury, right? I hired an assistant and I was like, now I can sit back a little bit versus like deep diving more into the real reason we should be hiring assistants. And Todd took me to lunch and I said, I'm broke. I can't do this. I think I'm done with real estate. And I shared with him I hadn't paid my taxes, and I kid you not, I thought his eyeballs were going to fall out of his head. He whipped out his checkbook and he wrote me a check for $5,000. And he said, this is a loan. And I just want you to know I believe in you so much so I'm lending you this money. I'm not going to tell you when you have to pay it back by, but you need to get your damn taxes done. And I was like, okay. So I had this gray box that I still have. And I had been throwing 4 years of 1099s, receipts, invoices, all of that in this gray box from IKEA. And I walked into a bookkeeper's office named Linda. I sat down, put the box on the desk, and just started crying. And Linda helped me that year clean up my stuff so that we could file my taxes. I didn't even know my numbers then, right? It's like, I don't know what I spent. I don't know anything. So she cleaned it all up for me, filed 4 years of taxes, paid the state off that year. 'Cause if you aren't paying your taxes, just a little FYI, the state of Minnesota can take your real estate license away. Thankfully, they hadn't. And paid the state off and got myself on an IRS payment plan. And it was rough. Like that was my biggest failure, right? Like I felt vulnerable, exposed, stupid, I had all these feelings about money. And yeah, then in 2018, when I bought my first duplex, like that was a huge, huge milestone for me. Then it was actually in 2019 that I was like, I need to figure out like how much is still left because I'd been making my payments on my IRS payment plan, but the IRS is not, they make it difficult for you to find out what you owe because I'm like pretty convinced they're like, yeah, girl, you keep sending us those checks. And so I finally got my balance and it was higher than it was when I was put on the payment plan. And I was like, screw this. And so I went ham and I started driving Uber if I wasn't showing a client that day. I had a roommate in my duplex on my side. I mean, I went ham and figured out I was selling stuff on Facebook, like Marketplace, like crazy. And I would sell something for like $50 on Facebook Marketplace. And the person would give me $50 cash. And I would immediately move $50 from my bank account that was sitting in there on the IRS app. I would pay $50 towards my balance. Like I did not let myself use any of that money for fun. And I paid all of that off in September of 2020. And so that was another big milestone for me. But because of that, I've become really passionate about wealth and understanding money, having a healthy relationship with money. Everyone on my team has to track their net worth. If you don't want to track your net worth, then I'm not the person for you to be in business with. My agents have to have LLCs and get paid through an LLC, and they all follow the profit first model. And some people might say that's controlling and not your role hiring independent contractors. I actually think it's my responsibility to make sure that they understand how to run their business within my business like a profitable business. So we track their profit. And then I encourage them, obviously it's their money, but I encourage them to reinvest their profit and to not use that as play money. So all of my profit from the business and my Keller Williams profit share and my other streams of income, they all go into a completely separate account. I call it my secret savings account. And I can't see it. For me to access it, I have to physically walk into my credit union, show them my ID and ask them to like move something somewhere. And that only goes towards wealth building. So when I needed my down payment money for the last purchase, I walked into my credit union and that's how they made that cashier's check was out of that account. And that's where all my cash flow goes to.
You have a book that you're following?
It's a lot of different books. But I would say Profit First is a really great book. If you haven't read that, I'd start there. I also have become a freak about taxes. I will tell you that I paid a very minimal amount to the IRS last year, less than my agent Kylie did. And I think it's just because of the tax strategies that I'm using now. There's a book called Tax-Free Wealth, and I follow those principles. Every year I have to make a certain amount of investments because I know it will reduce my taxable income. I have what I call my board of directors. So there are only a certain amount of people I actually take financial advice from. You could come up to me today and say, Bethany, I just learned about this, blah, blah, blah. And no offense, but it would go in one ear and out the other because I have my accountant, I have my loan officer, I've got my financial advisor, and then I've got 3 other people doing exactly what I want to do. And I only consult them because I'm just on a path. And I think too many people get too much advice from too many people and want to be like too many people, and then they never achieve anything. So Tax-Free Wealth, Profit First, those would be my 2 biggest recommendations for books.
How did you find the people that you take your advice from?
Honestly, they all found me. And what I mean by that is they all have believed in me at times that I didn't believe in myself. Todd is not on that list, but he could be. I have literally story after story of people that have been like, I believe in you, so I'm going to invest in you in this way. And Drew Lee is my friend out of Oklahoma. He was a top MAPS coach. I met him at a Recruit Select class, which is now Career Visioning, but was then called Recruit Select in Austin. And I couldn't afford a MAPS coach at the time. This is literally when I was just starting to deal with my taxes. And he said, I'm gonna coach you for free until you can afford coaching, because I know that you'll be able to do it. And then we've just had a really great relationship since then. So I would say, honestly, God like brought them into my life. And then I was vulnerable enough with them that we could like actually get to real conversation versus the fluff. And then, yeah, I trust them. They're doing what I want to do. And yeah.
So you mentioned coaching 4 times, and not to ask a loaded question. Who's your coach? And I mean, clearly coaching has made a big impact on you. I know there's several people in the room that should be hiring a coach. What has that coaching done for your life? I mean, again, loaded question, and I'm going to ask it anyway.
Yeah, I've had a coach since Drew got me into coaching. So when Drew coached me into coaching, I've had a coach ever since. I had left MAPS coaching for a little while just because I was like, okay, I've only been MAPS. Like maybe I should try something else. And I did that for like 6 months, and then I was back to MAPS. It helps so much to have a coach that understands the models. If you're not all in on the models of KW, like no harm. But if you are, then you need someone that actually understands those models to coach you to them. And my coach now is Heather Jennings, and she and I honestly do more like leadership, like she just keeps me focused right now. We have a lot of irons in the fire. We are currently, our team is in level 4 of the different levels of growing a team. And I learned this, that level 4 is actually where most teams combust. And I get it. I totally see it now, because you're starting to build agents, your agent side of the business, and you've got people reporting to you there. You're building your ops side of your business. You got people reporting to you there. And it's this part where you, as the rainmaker leader, are caught between working on the business and in the business. And I know I need to work in the business enough to help keep us profitable while I'm getting my agents comfortable taking on more of my clients. And it's a constant conversation that Jess and I are having around. I'll just be frank, like we're out of our reserves right now. Like this month I was like, I need to go sell. Like it was like, okay, we have to red light everything. And even though I was like, hey, we've bulked up our reserves. Well, what have I been doing the last couple of months? I've been all in on helping my agents and like coaching them and working on systems versus selling. So in looking at like my role on the team, it's to lead first, and that actually starts with self-leadership and then leading them. Second is to build the pipeline. So I am the main lead source on our team. And then third is to just like cast the vision and create clarity.
Sweet. So we have about 7 minutes left. You brought some other things. Do you want to share any of that, or?
Sure. I mean, I just brought stuff depending on like what people asked about. We've systematized everything. John Maxwell says systems make the ordinary extraordinary. And so these are our seller buyer guide workbooks. This is our most recent newsletter that we literally canvassed our farm with this morning. We're doing a lot of canvassing right now. I mentioned that, our bread and butter has been our database. And I think a lot of that is pretty set for the year. Not that I've given up on calling my database, but we need more lead levers to our team. So we started a farm last year, and we're really going all in on that. And then we're really focused on open houses right now. So we also do a lot. I mentioned I'm like focused on doubling down on what's working. A year and a half ago, I started making listing videos for all of our listings. And that is the reason I think our listing business has doubled this year versus last year. I think for a while, people just saw me as like the first time home buyer agent. And now more people are like, oh, this girl actually sells like a lot of listings. So our listing business is up. And that's, I think, making sure that you're communicating that you are a diversified agent and you don't only work one specific niche. But I would say most of our people for sure now know I work with investors and I work with a lot of sellers. And then our buyer business is almost like it just like organically shows up.
And how do we do the videos? Is that like professional, like we have a whole crew or what?
Yeah, I have a video guy that we book and we spend probably an hour and a half together in the listing. He then sends it to the editor who knows kind of our style and he edits it and we get it a couple days before we go on the market. It then gets pushed out to all of our social media platforms and yeah. That's
Is that on you have a YouTube channel or?
YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, it's all over.
Does it end up being less than 2 minutes?
Yes.
Or, yeah.
Yeah, they're
So what's the
usually,
next number for you?
are they like a minute and a half? Yeah, we try to keep them really short. We also, so like, there's kind of a, if you watch enough of them, you'll see we do like this template where it's, you see the agent, so my agents do them also. You see the agent 3 times and then you hear B-roll or you see B-roll. What?
Oh, I said there's a ton of them.
And then we're like voiceover talking. So the first initial piece is like introduction of who the agent is, our team name, and then like picking out 2 or 3 key words that describe that listing to like hook them in. And then it's really the video, the actual B-roll does a lot of the heavy lifting for you. People have asked if I'll share who he is, and I don't. That's my only thing I don't share. He's a good friend of mine, and if I started sharing him, he would never have time for me. So
That's fair. What have we not asked you that we should?
I don't know. Can't.
You mentioned, I think, just one piece of business came from open houses last year, yet you made that a focus this year.
Yeah.
What brought about that?
Great question. That is a really great question. It's because our listings are up. So last year, I wasn't doing as much listing business. And we all know that right now, the people that have the listings are dictating the market. And it's like, okay, well, if we want more listings, what's the easiest way to get it? So not only are we doing open houses, we're doing 7th level open houses on steroids. So we canvass for every single open house now. We just implemented that I'm really excited about. We are purposely on our invites from canvassing. We are inviting the neighbors to a neighbor private viewing prior to the open house. So there's an hour that is set aside just for the neighbors to see the property. So they're not dealing with all the crazy buyer traffic. And the goal there is if they walk in the door and there's less traffic, we can easier identify. Like our last one in Bloomington, Kylie, our agent there, had 3 people walk in saying that they're interested in selling in the neighborhood.
So if I don't know what a 7th level open is, because I'm new here, where do I find info about that?
Ask Perry where it is in the shift book.
Page 50.
Or you could honestly Google shift 7th level open house, and I'm pretty sure the image would show up.
How many doors for an open house? Like, have you found that there's like kind of a sweet spot?
It
Or maybe-
depends on honestly how much time. So we just listed a property Tuesday. Someone in here wrote an offer on it.
I did.
Hi.
I'm really hoping my client.
Well, like 8 people sent me an offer an hour before the deadline. So I called my client and said, I no longer am ready for us to review these. We have to push this back until 3. But thank you for the offer. It depends on how many like homes make sense. So the townhome that we just listed, there's 101 other units in the development. We just did those. Could have we gone further out? Sure. But it's just what made sense. And honestly, it's what we had time to do at that moment. The Bloomington, a lot.
Is this first time we had the 3 people that were?
No, that was in Bloomington.
Was that
Um,
residential, single family?
In Bloomington, yes, and that one we did 200.
14th Avenue on the east side. All right, so we have to wrap here because we're out of time. Is there any questions online we may have missed? Okay. All right, so before we go before we give her a round of applause, next month you guys are in for a fun treat. We are flying in Jason and Laura Burns, who are what, $130+ million team out of Los Angeles. On April 11th, it's going to be, or 12th, excuse me, Tuesday the 12th. So we're not the third Thursday. We're April 12th from 1 to 2. We're going to interview
2:30.
1 to 2:30. We're going to interview them. They're flying halfway across the country to be with you. So you can show up in person because they're coming halfway across the country. From 3 to 4, we're doing a exclusive Keller Williams Sports Entertainment event with them. They work with Matt's team, the Dodgers, including Clayton Kershaw, Justin Turner, lots of Dodger guys. So that's going to be awesome. I expect you in person. It'll be fun. Anything else on that I'm missing?
And then the evening activity that we're gonna have, so. And then in the evening, we're actually gonna be going to the Dodger Twins game with them. And so we'll have limited seating available for people that wish to participate in that. And yeah, exactly.
Talk to
Bethany.
Matt, talk to John, talk to me.
Bethany, I'll be talking to you and your team, because since you've been a guest already here, we're gonna talk about you being a guest at that, if that works in your schedule. Because we want everyone to learn. We're learning from you. We also want to provide people that you might be able to pick up some pieces from too. And next month will definitely be that.
All right, let's give a round of applause. Thank you. We'll see you in a few weeks. Yeah, please.
About Bethany. So, okay, we all know how